Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mainstream Indie Music channel. We talk about all things indie music, and this is a new episode. We haven't done one of these in a long time. What If, where we explore essentially as it sounds. What if an event didn't happen? What if a band didn't break up? So on and so forth. And this week, we talk about the band Fun. Before I launch into kind of the what if section of this video, it was very interesting reading about the backstory of Fun. It might even be something that I need to explore in its own video at some point in the future. Because, breakups are common in bands, even successful ones. They hit the top of the charts. They seem like they're on fire. Then all of a sudden they go away. And I think the only reason, too, other than Jack Antonoff, why I even kind of dove back into this band is because of that video that we did on this channel just a few weeks ago about the stomp clap era of what it's called of the 2010s. Fun kind of spearheads that movement. Their song We Are Young essentially fits that genre of music to a T, in both the style of music and then the lyrics that they talk about during the song. And they were literally on top of the world. That song was everywhere. Some nights got to go everywhere. That was hitting the radio stations. Carry On was another one, a little smaller of a hit, but that was there as well. And that was their second album even. So they had their own following audience as it was before they hit the mainstream. Don't get me wrong, Fun is part of the mainstream. They just became too big. And I'm not going to go into too much about their history, their actual history. Like I said, it may be something that I need to deep dive into the future. But what I have seen and what I will share today is, of course, it seems like there is just a lot of animosity between the lead singer, Nate, and kind of their lead songwriter and guitarist, Jack. Both of them are extremely talented, but time has kind of been able to tell which of the two had more talent. Jack, Bleachers is huge. It's one of the very few rock bands, alternative rock bands out there that's hit the mainstream, kept popular. And on top of that, Jack also is a producer for like Lana Del Rey, Taylor Swift, the 1975, a lot of bands Jack is a producer for. So, he has really proven that he has the talent. And he had his own band before Fun got there. Of course, the format where Nate came from definitely I would say was bigger. But Jack, his bands, it's not like they were doing bad or anything like that. So a lot of people tend to side with him in this argument. The only saving grace that I will give Nate is it simply does just kind of sound like you had two very big personalities and creative people in one band. And both of you, both him and Jack, were literally just used to running the show. So all of a sudden now they kind of have to set their differences aside and kind of make things work. And of course it seemed like it worked for a while, but it wasn't looking like it was long term, especially once Fun ended, I think, which was around the end of 2015. They would drop little hints here and there. They would say like, oh yeah, don't worry, this is just kind of short term. I don't really think like we'll be back before you know it. But at the same breath, Nate was gearing up for like his solo work, and based off of his hit with Pink, Give Me a Reason, I think he was definitely gearing up to become a huge pop idol. And Jack, meanwhile, was pretty much ramping up Bleachers to just go, which is exactly what happened. So That's the history of Fun, for a moment. What would happen though if Fun never ended? Could that have even happened? And based off of the history that I just shared, the only way that this would happen is if Nate and Jack kind of just settled their differences, or if one of them simply just kind of decided, hey, I know like maybe I have the talent, or, this person is kind of vying for the talent, the center stage, but like I'm going to acquiesce and kind of give up my pride so that the band can continue. It definitely could have worked. Here's the interesting question, though. Could Fun have kept the momentum going? Because, again, right around that time, the mid 2010s, like 2015, 2016, music would shift into a lot of hip hop driven genre. Like think of like the Drake, the Kendrick Lamar's, mumble rap, and so forth was starting to become a thing back then. So, could they have kept the momentum going? Or, is the only reason why Fun is so big is because they kind of just had that huge spark and then they were just gone? It's a very interesting question. This is what I think. I think Fun would struggle to keep their momentum going. I do think Jack would end up pretty much where exactly he's at today. I think he would still be a producer even if Fun was still going. Jack would still be producing music for huge artists as it is. But just Fun and their music alone, and again, it has nothing to do with their talent. It's just the timing of everything. And I think the timing would work against them. Now, maybe would they become like one of those bands that are still big? I kind of think of bands like The Killers or Imagine Dragons, where it's like they're just big despite the changing music atmosphere. It's a possibility. The only thing that works against Fun in that scenario is the lack of discography and material. Again, they only had 2 albums at the time, barely 2. So, again, like I said, maybe they wouldn't be able to keep the momentum going, but definitely not to lack of talent on their part. What do y'all think about Fun and their future? Let me know, and I'll see y'all next.